Hello, well, the tables have turned. I'm Kelly Webb and I'm taking charge of this, the 100th episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast this week. I'll be interviewing Warren Munson, whose podcast this is, of course. Warren is foremost a family man, husband to Michaela and father to Alex and Savannah. I would also point out, loyal friend too. But most of you will know him as an inspirational leader and entrepreneur based here in the beautiful area of Poole in Dorset. Warren started his career in a corporate environment, but soon realised he had ambitions beyond that arena and started his own accountancy firm, Inspire. Sometime later, Evolve was formed, and I'm going to talk to Warren today about his journey that led him to the point he's at now, where he's written a book and, of course, he's doing a regular podcast. In the words of the man himself, let's get on with the show. Hello, Warren.
This was really weird. Hello, Kelly.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast to interview you about your podcast and your life.
Yes, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be good.
Well, I've never played the Parky role before, but I'll do my best for you, Warren. Well, I thought, turning the tables, let's start right at the beginning with your education. Did you carry on and go to uni? Or did you leave at 14 to clean windows? Or maybe it was something in between?
Something in between, but closer to the latter, actually, Kelly. Oh. Left school at 15, just about to turn 16 with 5 GCSEs. I had great fun at school, but never really engaged with education, which is strange considering I went on to do my professional qualifications and all of those things. But circumstances at home at the time just meant, this was back in 1989, recession came along, Dad lost his job because he didn't want to participate in a management buyout of a company he was working for, and life just changed, and it was just, right, got to go and do something, got to be independent, and as a consequence, I suppose, not being engaged in education, get out into the real world and do something different.
I suppose there would have been more apprenticeships around at that time, would there? Or was that the YTS days, or had they already gone by then?
No, we were in Maggie Thatcher's YTS days. Oh. So my first job was a trainee accountant for a firm called Thomas & Morgan.
Oh, I know it well. I think it's based in Wimborne.
It's based in Wimborne, it is, and it's still there to this day. A guy there called Paul Thomas gave me my first opportunity, and it was a YTS job, £60 a week. Come be a trainee accountant, and put me on a course, but there wasn't many YTS accountants. One of the things I do remember was that the only actual YTS training course I could do was in sales, and actually when I look back, that was probably one of the great things that happened, because it taught me a different skill set that probably has stayed with me to this day.
So in the early days then, did you have ambitions really just to get out there in the market, as you said, because of the way things were at home? Or was accountancy something that was leading you and drawing you towards it?
I suppose the two things, I had the conversation with the girls when we were on holiday last week, was that I was great at maths, so I was top set maths, and I was with bottom set English. So I was completely contrasted. And in between, the other subject I was great at was art. So I had maths and art. So I always had this thing where I was going to go and be a photographer, go to arts university, and looked into all of that kind of stuff. Life changed and kind of left school. And I think parents were really supportive. They could see what was happening. They'd always, one thing they really taught me was to be independent. And that was I think that's a characteristic, again, that stayed with me. And that sense of independence. But what they did say is, you're going to do this, might not quite agree, but we'll be supportive, but go and do something where you can continue some form of education. And therefore, when the job as a trainee accountant, that applied the math skills that I had, and therefore off I went and took the job. So there was never a career choice as such. It was something that just fell into.
When you know you're good at something, it's quite rewarding then to be able to do it and be told that you're good at it. We all need that kind of pat on the back, don't we? That you're doing well at this. It's okay. You're doing all right. So you had a YTS and then you moved on there. I guess things were quite good in the YTS and you were finding success there. You were enjoying it. You were getting on. So what were your ambitions there in terms of going on to, I'm on to bigger and better things then?
It's really interesting, because I think that first point was that, earning £60 a week, trying to be independent. I had 2 or 3 other jobs. I was working in a bar. I sold burglar alarms door to door. Christ, knocking on doors on a Saturday morning. age 17, selling burglar alarms door to door. And I was doing everything. And I think it was about just survival. And I think it was about creating an income stream so that I could, I wasn't a burden on my parents, then moved out of home. And then really it was about, actually, probably as you just said, Kelly, I found I could do this and I was good at it and I enjoyed it. And I moved jobs 2 or 3 times, different firms, all small independent firms, all teaching me something different. And it was just a kind of career thing. And finally qualified as an accountant, qualified as a chartered tax advisor, working for a firm called Richard Mann & Co. So Richard was a great guy, still is a great guy, based over in Highcliffe, so kind of other end of the conurbation to Wimborne, was his office manager, but knew I had more about me. He was talking about, well, maybe you could take the firm on for me and all of that, and I knew that's not what I wanted. I needed to see and stretch myself and push myself. Again, a theme we'll probably come back to throughout the conversation.
And you'd have been quite young having those thoughts then, in terms of some people plan, well, I'm going to do this in 5 years or 10 years. Other people just end up where they end up. But you kind of knew, I want something, I'm not quite sure, but I don't think it's this. It's quite insightful for someone quite young, I think.
I think it's a hunger and a drive through that circumstance. When I think about it, I think, it was a torrid time at home, and seeing what my dad was going through, but I think that gave me a hunger and a desire. And I think it was hunger that drove me. And it was always, right, how can I prove myself? How can I go one step better? How can that not happen to me? And I think when I look back, that really formed me. And I think that's therefore what drove me. So it was always, okay, well, if the next thing I could do is I could be that. Well, if I now can get there, I can reach that. No, well, actually, I'll feel more secure if I could get to there.
So it was that, seeing that, what sounds like a catastrophic impact on your family through, was it a redundancy? Was it? So that lack of control, allowing your future to be in employers' hands and not your own, made you seek out that security for yourself. So that couldn't happen. You couldn't be made redundant by someone. That's what you're kind of saying. I think
that's ultimately saying. So ended up, left Richards, went into corporate life, as you said in the intro, joined Grant Thornton. It was a great firm.
That's a big firm as well, isn't it?
Big firm, big international firm. As soon as I joined, it was right, well, where's the hurdle point? Where's the next step? And after several steps, it was, well, it's partnership. And that's what drove me, right? What do I need to be a partner? What do you need me to do? And off I went and jumped all the hurdles, got on the gerbil wheel, spun it around to at just turned 30, really young for that kind of opportunity. Got the opportunity of saying, right, this was January, in June, partnership opportunity is there for you. It's there for the taking. This is what you've worked towards for the last 4 years. Take it. And that was a moment of truth for me, because I think you've hit the nail on the head, Kelly. I think it was that point about, but you've just made me jump all these hurdles. I've been spinning this wheel. And every time you said jump, I've said how high and I've achieved, but I'm not in control here. And it was a great place. And I couldn't do what I do now if I hadn't spent those 4.5 years there. And I'm really thankful for it. And I met some great people along the way and had some incredible experiences. And it changed me as an individual and made me a better professional. And as I say, enabled me to then go and do Inspire, but it just wasn't me. And that moment of truth and realisation hit as soon as the opportunity was there. It was more...
It's this, be careful what you wish for, isn't it? Because you obviously were seeking the top, the most best position that you could get to. And then as soon as it's there for the taking, you it's that point of decision making, before I jump. So you must have enjoyed it for a point. That learning curve obviously is something that's really important to you. And all of our experiences take us to where we are today anyway. But was there an enjoyment working within a corporate environment for a bit? Were there parts of it that you look back and you think, gosh, that was dreadful being in a corporate environment?
Yeah, I think it was the politics.
Yeah.
I think for me, some of my values is that honesty, integrity. I can't play games. My heart's on my sleeve. And you couldn't be true to yourself in that environment because there was games being played all over the place, politics being played, people climbing over each other.
Yeah.
That's the bit I didn't enjoy. Like I said, the bit I did enjoy was, I went out to South Africa, I went to different places in the world, I experienced different things, I got involved in some really challenging projects. I worked up in London, with the national tax team, my knowledge, my experience, it all changed me, it all formed me, and they were great things. And the people I met along the way, as they say, were incredible. And, one individual, Mike, who hopefully perhaps we'll have a chat about during the course of this conversation, became a lifelong friend, mentor, Yoda, and I wouldn't have met him. And he fundamentally changed my life.
And I always have this kind of thing that I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
You might regret sort of pushing that cup of tea off the table, but in terms of big life things, even when they've gone wrong, or even if they were shorter lived than you'd imagine, they make you who you are today. They all add into the pot of experiences and that. So you're saying you look back fondly on Grant Thornton. It was a really important period in your life, and you met some important people. So it's not a regret at all. It was
Absolutely.
A springboard to the rest of your life, your working life.
I'm with you. I don't think you can live. I've got no regrets. I've made some huge mistakes along the way, and there's things I'll do differently, possibly, but I don't regret any of it, because I think if you live a life of regret, you become very bitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you can't change it.
No, and life's about experiences and choices, and you turn left or you turn right, and then you deal with the consequences of doing it. You can't regret things. It's just they're the decisions you made at the time.
Well, that's it. You can look back, as you say, and say, well, if I was this age with this experience and this knowledge, and I was given that decision again, you might make something different. But we make the right decisions at the right time for the right reasons.
Absolutely. I might have turned right when I turned left, but with the facts and everything and where I was in life, you turn left. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, but probably only ever kicks you in the teeth, doesn't it?
So one of the important things that came out of that, as you just alluded to, is a great friendship then.
Yeah.
Tell us about Mike.
So I always say that in business and in life, I think you need some people around you, maybe some role models that, help you along your way and in your journey, and particularly when you're running a business. So one of the things, kind of preach to our clients and is a big part of Evolve is surround yourself with like-minded people and great things can happen. And for me, so Mike was a partner at Grant Thornton in Poole. He was completely different. He had this completely different approach that I'd seen from anybody else I'd worked with, which was build relationships with the clients and real relationships. And he would say, it's our philosophy at Inspire, clients, people don't want to talk about, their turnover, their gross profit, their ratios. They need to know that. What they want to talk about is how you're going to help them in life, and what are their ambitions, and what drives them, and what does good look like for them. And that's his approach. It's completely different. So he kind of took me under his wing, worked with him on a large number of his clients. But he then started to do some stuff with conferences, national communications with GT, and we, but he was really supportive. And in terms of that partnership, you don't get the offer of partnership unless you've got the support of the people around you. And he was my biggest supporter. And then I left, and we fell out because he was disappointed in me. He thought I was making a mistake, and we didn't talk for a number of years. And he then retired. And I remember it's the best thing I ever did was I picked up the phone to him and I said, Mike, look, we haven't talked for 4 or 5 years. I know you're upset when I left. I know I disappointed you, but can we just go for a beer and a chat? An hour later, I said, right, I need somebody to come in. I need a mentor. I need somebody to chair, kind of inspire, to lead us. And I often say to tell me when I'm being an idiot, because I'm headstrong, so I need somebody around me. And he became that person. So
you rekindled your friendship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
and he became
lovely.
so much more than that. He's been I've got a great dad, but he became a father figure to me. Sadly, he passed away in July this year, and it's been tough, but I look back and I think the lessons he taught me and the time we shared together was important, but he definitely shaped me because of his different kind of approach. And it had to be about having fun, understanding the clients, but actually that ability for, as I say, somebody to turn around and put their arm around your shoulder when times are tough in business, because it is.
Someone that understands.
It's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And, you need that. You need people around you. It doesn't need to be a mentor, it doesn't need to be a non-exec, but it can just be fellow business owners that are sharing your journey, that can put an arm around your shoulder when it's tough and say, I've been there. That
feels like quite an important message for your clients at Evolve and probably Inspire as well, that sometimes it's lonely. It's a lonely place to be the successful really business owner. Yeah.
I think, to succeed in anything, I think you push yourself and you push your boundaries, and as a result, it can become lonely. So,
good learning point there for everyone listening. Just taking you back a little bit then, there was this point at Grant Thornton where you were aiming for this particular position, you could see it on the horizon, and it made you go and stop in your tracks. How long did that stop in your tracks take? I mean, did you make a decision quite quickly, or were you mulling it over for 3 months, 6 months? Was it a really big, difficult decision to make?
I think, it's a really good question. I think the opportunity really presented itself in January by, how apt is this, on the 5th of April 2004, I resigned, worked my notice, and by Independence Day, July 2004, had started Inspire. So I think it probably happened relatively quickly.
Right.
And I suppose that typically is me. Once I've got the fire in my belly, when I've made a decision, I just want to get on with it. And I remember the time, they took me around. I had to do this tour of the country, talking to other partners about why Grant Thornton was great and why I shouldn't be doing this and all of those kind of things. But it just taught me that those in their 30s, 40s were, really happy. They had the income, they thought they had the life. Those in their sort of late 40s into their 50s were starting to get a little bit jaded, and those towards the end I felt were really kind of, regretting nearly, we used that word earlier, but maybe it's the wrong word, but really kind of wondering what they'd done with their life in corporate life. So that just set me on this kind of path that I could see the opportunity. I knew we could do something different. I could see the market opening up, and fire was in my belly, and off I went.
So I was going to ask you, did you do any sort of risk assessment in a calculated project management sort of way, or did this fire in your belly just make sure all of that was out the window? And I'm doing it anyway because I've got this fantastic idea.
It was just off, really. I think there wasn't any risk, really. And people often, I remember those conversations, but I left this big corporate animal. And it was me, a laptop, phone in a desk in a managed office suite in the Arena Business Centre on Ferndale Industrial Estate. And I remember sitting there on day one in this little 2-man office in a space probably smaller than we're sat in now, Kelly. And thought, what have I done? But I kind of committed. And everybody said, well, you've taken a huge risk. And there wasn't, Okay, so Michaela and I were married at the time. We had no kids. She had a great job. She was successful.
You said you had no kids. Were they far off?
Oh, yeah. So, it's a very good question. So the day I resigned, we had no kids. So, and I remember the final conversation with the office managing partner and saying, look, I've enjoyed my time here. Thank you for, taking me around the country and talking to people. Whatever you say, whatever you do, I've just got to go and do this. It might be the biggest mistake of my life, but I'm going to go and do it. And that was on the Wednesday, and on the Saturday that followed, so this was early April 2004, Michaela came downstairs, look, I'm pregnant. You're going to stay at GT, aren't you? And I was like, not with what I've just said. So no, there was no kids, but, Alex was on her way. But, it wasn't, the worst case I always thought was I would go back to employment.
Well, exactly. There's always a way back.
I think the bigger risk came when I was taking risks with other people's lives later on, when I started to employ people and growing a team. I think that was a burden. That's when I think risk was taken, because there was no going back at that point. But when it was just me, a laptop, phone and a desk, it was just like my ego could be hurt here. My confidence could be knocked. Yeah. But I was always going to be able to get a job. Yeah. And therefore, I think the risks were taken later. The risks weren't taken in those early days.
So it's interesting, isn't it, that obviously a very key role model in your life, Mike, that we talked about, he stayed within that corporate environment until such time as he retired, and then he could have fun, I guess, with you and helping you do something different. Do you think he would have had any regrets not doing something earlier, or was that corporate life just for him? Because some people would just love that and fit into it and not want to do anything else. I
think one of the things that I loved about Mike was that he was complete, if I talk about being independent a character, he was complete individual, and therefore I don't think he ever tried to fit in, but he made that work for him. Mm-hmm. So when he did get a little bit jaded and a little bit bored, he went and found something new within that corporate environment. So he went and worked with the national communications team about how they were going to communicate messages internally, externally, worked on conferences in the UK and around the world. So he seeked other opportunity within that environment.
Right.
And I think that's what he always loved about it. And that's always was the kind of message he was selling to me. I think he accepted that he didn't need control. And I think that was the difference between us, if that makes sense. I still couldn't be at the beck and call and be a glorified employee of somebody else, I think.
Yeah, it's a mindset. I always struggled being an employee. I gave all that up. It's about, they struggled with me at school, I think. When the teachers start telling you what to do and you're sort of 14, 15, you think, actually, I'm a grown-up now. Do I need to be told? Well, of course you do when you're that age.
Yeah.
But you don't know then,
do you? You don't know that then, do you?
You don't know that then. So are there or have there been people along the way that you maybe saw a bit of yourself in, or perhaps a bit of Mike in, or where you look and you think, do you know what, if you were just brave enough, if you could just take that risk or take that leap of faith, that you could make more, you could make a different outcome? Do you know, you obviously deal with a lot of entrepreneurs and successful people, but are there people that you've seen that are a bit staid and they just haven't been able to jump out and realise their dreams?
Yeah, I think it's not for everybody, is it? Because I think there's a I'm going to sound like, is it Spider-Man? With opportunity comes a huge sense of responsibility. So I don't think it's necessarily risk. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that perhaps could take more risk and succeed in a greater fashion, but they're comfortable because they've got, with the power comes the responsibility. And I think they get a balance of that. For me, I think the thing that holds a lot of business owners back, and probably, people in careers and whatever, is that they become complacent. They become a little bit distracted. They become jaded. And they don't keep that focus, passion and belief going in themselves and in the business and in the team around them. And I think it's more about they end up having some limiting beliefs as well about themselves and the business, so that they limit their opportunity by the way they think. And they don't adopt that kind of growth mindset. To a certain extent, again, that's what Evolve's all about. It's about, okay, you're on a journey, continue that kind of piece to grow as an individual and to succeed both in business and from a personal perspective. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about Evolve, is that I think we're giving that opportunity to business leaders to change, evolve, develop and succeed.
The Evolve thing is the word rather than the company is quite important. Some of the podcasts I've heard you do on this podcast, this 100th episode, you are talking to business leaders that they just change direction. They just get to the corner and turn left instead of right and start different businesses. And I find it fascinating that people are brave enough to do that, and just because they know how to do a business and the effort and the procedures, and they've got all the functional stuff in the right places, they just come up with a new idea and just leap in a different direction. I think, wow, they need to be brave, these people.
They do, but there's also there's a trick there, isn't there, and a hazard, which is the shiny new thing mentality. And I've been guilty of that. There was a time, good friend, good client, James Pink, property developer, we went over to China and looked at modular building over there, and he's taken that knowledge and done something really great with it, but lost a lot of money in the process. And but it was the new shiny thing, and got involved in other businesses, software businesses, and they've succeeded. But I think there is a risk that you can get distracted by, look, there's a shiny thing over there, and you forget your core business. And I had some of that, that was probably me in sort of 2014, I would have thought.
So when you look back at Inspire, the first big thing, Evolve, relatively new.
Yeah. It's
2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah. It's sort of 2.5 years live, and another 18 months before that of kind of working out what would it look like, what would it feel like. So yeah, it's sort of, I'd always say it's 3 to 4 years old.
And sort of like 18 months pandemic years, they don't count, do they? Yeah. They're kind of scrubbed in some sectors. But what are you most proud of in terms of whether it's Inspire or Evolve, or something you did in either or both of them, when you look back at, I did this?
It's a really good question. There's so much I'm proud of, but for me, it's all about, when I started Inspire, so the same applies to Inspire and Evolve, it's about the people. So I set up with this, right, I wanted to treat people as individuals. I wanted to lead people in a certain way and give people opportunity, and I've done that. And as a result of doing that, I think leading people where you give them opportunity and you see them grow and you see them succeed, and that's the thing I'm most proud of. Some of the people that are out there now that have clearly left Inspire and doing other things, that's what really floats my boat. When I think about the team at Evolve and the team at Inspire and the great individuals we've got, and you can see what they could become, that is something I take real achievement and pride in. And the funny thing is, it started within those founding kind of principles of Inspire, but you soon realise that actually that's the bit that I enjoy, but it's also the bit that leads to great client delight and great delivery and keeps you on your toes, because you're always striving to be better. And those people are happy, so they're always striving to give great client service.
Yes.
So yeah, for me, that's the thing I'm most proud about.
It is strange, isn't it, that you were saying about Grant Thornton, and it won't just be them, but those big corporate environments, and not just corporate environments, I'm sure government as well. There's the politics, internal politics, and the climbing over each other was a phrase you used earlier, always trying to go one better, or to be the one that got it or did it, or got the reward or the praise for it. And yet what you're saying is your philosophy here that you're most proud of is the fact you don't have that philosophy. We're all in it together, and we all want each other to succeed, and that ultimately comes out in your client service experience. So that's really interesting, and it goes back to that positive mindset as well. And we talk about whether you've had any lightning bolt moments. I know my lightning bolt moment was some years ago, where I realised the power of positive thinking. It changes your life. And if your philosophy on your work here at Inspire and Evolve is about positive mentality, it seems to be working. I mean, was there any other lightning bolt moments for you, or is that it? That came from Mike, from what you're saying, this positive experience. Yeah,
I think that my interaction with Mike Grant Thornton definitely did it. My interactions with Grant Thornton about everybody being a number. When I started my own business, nobody was going to be a number. Everybody was a human. Everybody was going to be treated as an individual. And, we got Anne with us, who's been with us for 16 of the 17 years of the Inspire journey. And I knew at Grant Thornton, and she joined and immediately came knocking on the door to say, I'm pregnant. And what should I do? Should I go back to Grant? And I was Grant Thornton. I was like, no, that's you. That's life. You're an individual, so we'll make it work. And, so that was even before she joined Inspire, but had handed a notice in at GT. So it's a Ryan and McGagan story, I suppose.
Yeah.
Must be something about the Inspired charm. And she's been with us 16 years and, is really senior within the organisation. And if I'd have treated her as a number, she wouldn't be here now. And there's so many other stories about that. So I don't know about lightning bolt moments. I think there's definitely a wake-up call that I had in 2014. 10 years into Inspire, I remember, a couple of conversations, funny enough, one with Mike, who was getting really excited. It was our 10th anniversary, and wasn't I happy, and wasn't everything great? And me turning to say, no, I'm not. I'm really unhappy. We've lost our way a little bit. We had hired some people that didn't really fit our culture and our way of doing things. I got distracted with some of those other opportunities. Our client service wasn't quite what it was. And I remember saying to Mike, I'm just becoming that person I didn't want to become when I left Grant Thornton. So, and if we roll this forward another 10 years, I'm 20 years in and I'm just that person. So we've got to do something about it. And so, and that really changed things. And we had our 10th anniversary party with the big black tie event at the O2 in Boscombe, not the O2 in London.
No.
And I remember going onto that stage, and I'd had a conversation with Michaela the night before, and kind of half jokingly, but half serious, because I was that low, saying, what would you do and kind of what would you say if I actually got on the stage tomorrow night and said, look, it's been great, it's been a great 10 years, but thank you everybody, but actually that's it.
No job tomorrow.
But that's kind of how I felt. Now, I was never going to do that. Was I too responsible as an individual and care too much? But that was another kind of moment. Why am I feeling this bad? I've got to go and do something about it. But that 10th anniversary party, we had former staff there, we had clients there, we had people that supported us, the banks, people that provided us with the work, our existing team. And just hearing people tell the stories about what a difference we'd made was the fuel and the energy I needed. I suppose it's a bit like, it gave me that positive mindset to say, no, okay, I'm in a bad place. I've driven the business to here. I need to go and do something about it.
So it sounded like you were quite overwhelmed up to that point.
Yeah.
With where you were.
Yeah.
But all that feedback on the night,
all that positive energy, really. Yeah. Just kind of made me think, right, believe in yourself again, have that sense of belief. Don't believe your own hype. Don't let the ego get in the way, because it had. Make some of those tough decisions and choices you're going to need to make, but you've been running from. We exited a director shareholder as a result. We fundamentally changed our approach again, back to basics, back to getting that. I talked about it earlier, but I think focus, passion and belief in business is what it's about.
So did you come into work the next day, sort of flip charts out, sleeves rolled up, it's a brainstorm, what are we going to do?
Something like that. It kind of was just that kind of, once I got over the hangover, it was, it just gave me energy, and we haven't looked back since. And as a result of that, again, if I talk about Evolve and why Evolve exists, it's because of my journey. And I think if I'd had that linear, and success is never linear, but if it had been a linear journey, I would never have known that I needed that energy and that passion from others and that support of others. And it changed. You say you had that lightning bolt moment that gave you this positive mindset. Mine was about, I need a growth mindset. I'd kind of accepted who I was and where we were, and actually, no, I can be something better. I can coach myself. I can go and get coaching. I had some chips on my shoulder. I went and saw, wonderful woman, Becky Holston, as a life coach, and I talk about her. I'm really supportive of what she's done, and honest to say, again, without her, I wouldn't be who I am today, because she's helped me realise some of those things that were my limiting beliefs and things that were holding me back.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, because I was going to ask you if you had any regrets, but it sounds like or not regrets, because we talked about you might look back and say, it's not regret, but if I had this knowledge at this age now, I might do it differently if you give me the same choice. That's how I look at it. If we would have done things differently had we got the same time again. But it sounds like you might have almost got into those checkpoints at the time they were happening. Whereas some people might get past them and look back and say, if only I'd have. It's like you saw it happening, you felt it happening, it crept up on you, it overwhelmed you, and then you went, right, I'm stopping and I'm changing. Yeah. Not necessarily going off-piste with the new distraction or the shiny new thing, but you were going, I need to get back to me, I need to get more Warren, I need to think about my ideas. So, is my understanding correct? That's what it happened as it went along? Or were there some things that you went past a few months or a few years and thought, I should have done this before?
One of the things I look back on it, and it's about bravery. And I think there was a period in my life where maybe it's because the kids had come along. Maybe it's because, money had become necessary and important and all of those things. And there were things where I was making too many compromises and I wasn't brave enough to take perhaps the risk or consequence of changing. But ultimately that made me feel unhappy. And I think that unhappiness, again, I suppose I look back on my childhood, it wasn't, in some ways, it led me to leaving school. It was an insecure environment in a way. And it had never been that kind of secure from that kind of perspective. But they were loving, they're caring, they taught me to be independent. They gave me this character that I've got, and that made me feel really secure. And so I think when you look at that, I think I lost some of that DNA in me along the way, and I had to get that back. And as soon as I got that back, and I wish I'd been brave enough to have done that earlier.
So if you were to go back now to a young Warren,
God,
and give some advice, would it be that kind of don't lose yourself? Is that what you'd be saying?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it is believe in yourself, believe in who you are, because I think I carried, if I'm being brutally honest, I think I carried the fact that I left school at 15 for way too long in my life. And I think the fact that I didn't have an education, put me in a room with highly educated people.
Right, yeah.
And I'd go into the corner a little bit. This normal outgoing character would disappear. So I think it would be just, believe in who you are, believe in what you can achieve, and
there's a lot of successful business people did go to uni and that. Richard definitely. Branson, wasn't he? He was left school at 15. Yeah. Alan Sugar, I'm not sure about him, but there were some of those big names, these people that had that confidence and the drive to just say, I'm going to go and do something and I'm going to do it now.
I think it's hunger. So I kind of even look at our client base, and we've got some really successful clients and those that are really well educated. We've also got clients that succeed, and you look back and you think, and someone once said to me, we were talking about education for my girls, and I'd kind of dismissed it a little bit. And it was a guy called James Wilson, who wasn't the director we exited, but he was a director for a time before he saw a new career opportunity for him. Years 2 and 3 of Inspire, great individual. And he was a big advocate of private education, and we were talking about education. I was saying, but I didn't do that. I went to a comp, I didn't really have an education, but it taught me how to deal with people, all of that kind of thing, and it gave me a hunger. And he said, but your success will be that your children feel as secure as you did, but they won't have that hunger because you'll have that blanket, and therefore they need education. Yeah. And I think it's a really interesting way of
it's cyclical, isn't it? That if you grow up insecure, you weren't insecure the whole time, weren't you? You got to a point where you saw something happen which frightened you, clearly, and you didn't ever want that to happen. But if you give your children lots of security, do they then never fear insecurity? So do they have the drive? But it's really difficult.
I still struggle. My girls 12 and 16, and I still struggle with it today. But I think education is really important, and but we are who we are because of circumstances in life. Yeah, no, absolutely. So what is the next evolution, or is Evolve still in its infancy to the point where this is still the next evolution evolving right now? Yeah, you know what? I don't really know, and I'm quite excited about that. I think, from an Inspire perspective, part of the thing that we did after 2014 is we put in place a senior leadership team that runs the business day to day, so I can focus on my strengths, leading the team, spending time with clients. So I'm really enjoying that role because actually you've taken me out of the operational side of things. It took me a while to do that because of this control freak in me wants to know and do everything. But we've got a great team doing that. So Inspire's in a great place in terms of, and my role within that is great, and I'm really enjoying it. And there's more growth to come. We're firms recognise we're winning awards, we're doing the right things, clients are coming to us, we're being referred, new opportunities, so that's great. And then, I suppose Evolve is the startup still. We've talked about it. Is it 2, 3, 4, maybe only 18 months with the COVID period, as you said? I don't know, but, that's an opportunity, and that's a real passion from a perspective that I really believe in business leaders. I believe in the benefit that they can bring to society. And so many business owners out there are lonely, and therefore if you can provide some support to them by putting them in environments, in events, in peer groups with like-minded people, they can learn and share from each other. If alongside that you can give them some coaching and development support, and actually coaching and development support for their teams in terms of the wider range of skills that you need, then that's really exciting. And we've won some great projects with, Dorset, Solent, LEPs. There's a recognition of the material we've created and the things we're doing. So that's in a great place too. So right now, when you say what's the next evolution, I think it feels like in a good place. Don't get too distracted. I'm sure there'll be some other opportunities that come along, and I'm sure I want to be in a place where I can seize some of those opportunities. But really, one of the things I've learned is focus, and Inspire evolves the focus, and long may that continue. I
kind of get that feeling that distraction is a thing for business leaders and entrepreneurs. It's easy to get really excited about a new project. So focus is key.
And I think the distractions can be lots of things, can't they? I think it can be the money. So I think if you think about, I often say when you start a business, you start it because you have a passion to do something, or you want to achieve something, or you can make a product better, or you can deliver a service better than anybody else. And then what happens is, and it's not necessarily about the money, there's a desire for income, But then what happens is you start to build that business, it starts to succeed, you start to employ people, you start to take on premises, and all of a sudden you've got to hit sales numbers to cover the costs. And then maybe you get the opportunity to take a bit of that money out yourself. So you then...
Oh, the very idea.
The very idea. And you benefit from some of that. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the distraction becomes actually you've got an animal there. And you've got to feed the animal.
Yeah.
And the animal is money. And money can become the distraction. Believe in your own hype can become the distraction. I mean, how many business leaders, end up getting divorced or separated or not having meaningful relationships with their kids because they get distracted. It's
maybe that goes back to the ego thing you were talking about as well, is that I've told everybody I'm doing this, it's working, it's going okay, I've got to make sure it continues to succeed. So then your ego gets in the way of your relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, completely. And you do see that unfortunately happening.
Okay, so no further reinventions a la Madonna style just yet, because Evolve is still very important. And of course you've got the, I'm not quite sure what you call it, the shared working space in Lower Parkston.
Got the co-working space.
That's the term.
Yeah.
Which I guess you said that's how you started in a place like that. Is that what you were thinking when you decided to set that up?
Yeah, well, yes. So it was, but it wasn't the initial thought. The initial thought was the space we have is an old school building, so it's got some office space for us as Evolve, it's got meeting room, and then it had this old school hall which was an event space, and then along came COVID.
Right. So
the reinvention there was actually, if we want to put like-minded people together, then actually putting business leaders that don't want to work from home, that need a desk, on a daily desk hire basis, or if somebody's starting their business and they don't want to do it from home, then let's create that environment and space, and that's how it came about.
It is important, isn't it? A lot of people working from home, and an awful lot of those people don't have space to actually work from home, or they're on the kitchen table or working off the end of their bed. Yeah. So whilst for a lot of people they sort of say, oh, it's great, I don't have to go into the office anymore, it's not necessarily a nice experience to be stuck on the end of your bed working off your dressing table. No. So it's a good resource to have locally as well. I don't think there's a lot of it about, other than those really ugly big buildings on industrial estates, which who wants to do that?
Yeah, come to Evolve.
It's not very inspiring, is it?
Yeah, come to the old school hall. Yeah.
Now, Warren, we talked a lot about your journey to this point. Working this hard and being this successful, you must have a way to release all of this tension in your life. And I'm sure the people that know you or are interested in what you do here at Evolve would be interested to know how you keep a lid on it, actually, to keep the lid off it, to let the steam out, to be able to vent and not get too stressed. What do you do in your downtime that allows you to keep it real and to keep your health in check?
Yeah, I think there's two things there, isn't there? It's what do I do to try and keep it real? And what do I do to keep my health in check and have the right mindset? I think keeping it real, Michaela and the girls do that for me, and they spending time with them, and that's the reality that actually they're the things that are most important to me. So they help keep it real. But yeah, I can often get to the point where I'm not present in their company. I'm distracted. I'm thinking about something else.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the challenges in keeping it real is being present in the moment, and that's something I'd always battle with because of just who I am and the character I am and that kind of goal-driven individual. But they help me keep it real. And then from a kind of health perspective, it's don't say no to anything. So, I'll try the cold shower regime. You're the one who introduced me to that.
Yes.
I will, I've tried the breathing exercises. I've tried all of those different things. But for me, it has to be physical activity because much of my day is spent sat down or even walking around an office. It's not really physical. It's very mentally tiring, and therefore I've got to get out and physically tire myself out. So hence why I'll run, and cycle, but predominantly cycle, and I'll do cycling challenges, and I suppose there I am again. I'm setting myself goals to achieve physical challenges, but that just gives me that balance that I need, really. So
cycling's a massive hobby,
passion, everything, yeah.
How did you get into that? Is that right from school, or is it just something that came about?
No, we all used to ride a bike as a kid, and do you know what? It was a drunken conversation at a client's Christmas party back in 2012, and somebody said at the start of the night, I tell you what we can do. We could ride to Paris. Paul to Paris. That's what we could do. We could raise some money for charity. And I was like, yay, that sounds good. Well,
haven't been on my BMX since I was 14, but
yeah,
what the hey?
What the hey? And I don't think I said yay until about the 4th pint. And then I said, yay, I'm up for it. And that was it, really. And I just got the bug, really, and just enjoyed it ever since. So that same group of individuals raising money for a great charity called Boo. We've ridden from Paul to Paris. But then, on a number of different trips, I've ended up going all the way down through France, along the south coast of France, and ending up in Rome. So,
Wow.
There's lots of different trips and challenges, but yeah, it's good fun.
And I think they were all relatively uneventful, those trips, unlike the ones closer to home that involved a few operations down at Poole General Hospital, but we won't go into that in too much detail.
No.
And you like running, you like doing all the fitness. So I think it's important to get that out, actually, that... as you say, you spend a lot of time in the office, a lot of business people will, particularly setting up new businesses. And it's really important for your mental health to get out there and get the fresh air, get the vitamin D, and have all of that air going through your lungs, like the deep breathing we talked about. It's really important to keep on top of your body so that you can keep on top of your mind.
Absolutely. And I think I talk about frantic Munson. So I know now, I've learned to recognise it, that the times when I'm making poor decisions or I'm just being too emotional at work and not making the clear decisions with clarity is I'm being frantic. And I know that's the point. I need to just step aside, ideally get out on my bike, go ride, 50, 60, 100 miles and just take some time out. And that resets, that fresh air, that just kind of nearly the meditation of turning the pedals or running along the road just resets my mind, and I can come back in, I'm fresh. And I can make the sensible decisions. I'm
sure some of your regular listeners will have just spat out their tea when you said 60, 100 miles. Did he really just say that? Yes, folks, you heard correctly. Warren will go out early on a Sunday morning and ride to other parts of the country and back before late breakfast.
Yeah, Glastonbury and back is a favourite.
Warren, it's been brilliant. Thanks very much for sharing your story. I think if people want to know a bit more of the technical side of things, they can get your book, can't they? This was about getting to know you as an individual more. And sharing the story. So some really good learning points there. And I think for me, don't distract if you're thinking about going to be a business leader. Don't get distraction. Keep focus. Have a mentor if you can, or someone you can talk to, because it can be very lonely. And don't let ego get in the way. I mean, that's my learning points from what you said there. Well, I wish you the best of luck, whatever your next venture might be. I think we've still got a new business out there, Evolve, that seems to be doing very well and keeping you in check. If people want to find out more about Warren and his journey, you can pick up a copy of his book. Where can they pick up a copy of your book? Amazon. And what's it called?
Evolve to Succeed.
Evolve to Succeed. Or you can like and subscribe to this podcast, where you'll get lots of interesting stories from people just like Warren that have done, well, it's not just about accountancy, it's all businesses, the whole range of businesses. So you can find out more there. Warren, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been weird to have the tables turned on me, but I've really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you.
Thank you.